Hello everyone, this is Tancho de Guzman and I will be discussing my reaction to the film entitled The Harry Who and the Chicago Imagists. The film provides an overview of the Chicago Imagist style and the key figures involved in its development. Their artworks were known for being grotesque, surreal, and indifferent to New York art trends. Although other groups were lumped together under the style, which was seen in the 1960s in Chicago, such as Nonplus Sam, Monster Roster, and False Image, the film provided more footages for the Harry Who, the group that popularized the Chicago Images style. For this video reaction, I will just highlight at random some of the items that I find interesting in the film. Okay, first of all, the video is a very good introduction to Chicago Imagism, and this was done by interviewing important players involved or connected to the art style. From the institution that started it all, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, the art teachers, mentors, and the students who became famous artists, critics, collectors, gallery owners, and curators. Thus, we get insights about the style of the group from various points of view. The multiple points of view also serve as a validation of the narrator's statement that the history of art is not linear, but more like a web that interconnects creative ideas and significant figures, styles, and artist groups. This was effectively seen as a summary at the end of the video, showing a spider web where the various factors influencing the art style were like post-its stuck on the web itself. I find it also interesting how a group of 6 artists named Harry Who came up with their group name. Personally, I initially associated the name to a rock band. During the brainstorming of a title for their first group exhibit, the name of Harry Boras, the art critic of WFMT, the cultural radio station of Chicago, was mentioned. And one of the artists in the group, Carl Wiersom, was said to have asked the other members, "Harry who?" The group found it incredulous and funny that Wiersom did not know the popular art critic, and that gave them the idea of using the phrase, modifying it to "Harry who" for more soundbite as the title of their exhibit and eventually the title of their group. This only shows how creative the group can get. Comics has been a big source of inspiration for the artworks of the Chicago Images, particularly the Harry Who. Their love for comics was even reflected in their exhibit catalog, preparing it in the comics format. In effect, I think the group was able to elevate comics art to the level of serious art. I remember during my college days, local comics was very popular, being sold and rented at the sari-sari store. Reading comics was a temporary diversion to the demands of college work at the time, although most of the stories illustrated in comics were rather, I should say, mababaw or shallow. There was one writer and illustrator that I admired. This was Vincent Benjamin Kua, whose works like Cecilia's Lullaby, The Coldest Ice Cream, border more on the truly literary. Unfortunately, the local comics is already dead at present. The role of significant others in the development of the artist was also highlighted in the film. A case in point is Rei Yoshida, mentor to the 6 artists of the Heiru, and one of the artists paid tribute to this professor by describing her as one who was able to isolate the unique qualities of students, isolating the emblems of his students' personalities. He was also known to excavate ideas from the students and build upon this on their unique artworks. And also look at his student soul and relate this to the mentor soul. Another important figure was the exhibition director of the Hyde Park Art Center, Don Baum, who was pivotal to forming the Heiru, introducing the group to the public and making them famous. Thus, all this would show us that aspiring artists would actually need the guidance of teachers and mentors to bring out the creative best in them, and also they need critical connections to help them in the further development of their careers. The film also introduced me to the technique of reverse painting, as exemplified by the works of Jim Nutt and Carl Wierson. Reverse painting, as I understand it, is making use of plexiglass instead of the regular canvas for the ground. The drawing for the painting is initially made on paper, which is then attached to the front face of the plexiglass. This drawing then is copied or traced on the back side with paint, and eventually the rest of the drawing is painted layer by layer. The closest technique similar to reverse painting that I have done was from a class plate where fluid acrylics were allowed to drip and flow from a clear plastic sheet. And lastly, the Chicago Imagists, according to the narrator in the film, had more women artists than other artist groups during their time. Gladys Nilsson was surprised and puzzled when people would comment that her paintings were very feminine. She said that in the Heiru group, or the Heiru group, gender was not an issue. But what was really important was how creative you were as an artist. This also shows that the Chicago Imagists were more progressive and more liberated in their thinking and practice of their artistic profession. And with that, maraming salamat for listening.